Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we're super happy to have you here. And if you've been listening and enjoying for a while, I would be super grateful if you would please take a moment to give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's one of the best and simplest ways to pay it forward and help others find the show so that they too can tap into the powerful perspectives and positive vibrations we are collectively emanating. The other unique and magical way to share this show is by sending any friends you think would benefit from listening to this podcast our Game with the Universe link at positivehead.com/game. Also listed in the show notes, which will serve them up a quote-unquote random episode when they click it. Just instruct them before clicking the link to close their eyes for a moment and sincerely ask the universe to cue up the episode that contains the insight and perspectives that they most need to hear at this point in their life journey, and then click to listen to whatever episode is synchronistically served up to them. I have heard time and time again from people about the incredible results they received playing the game. So just tell your friends magical results are guaranteed or their karma back. Alrighty then, positive heads. Welcome, welcome. Here we grow. How you doing out there? Floating around on this Friday. I'm doing just fine, and I'm excited to jump into today's episode and share a little bit of, today's episode, I guess you could say, coming live and direct from the dreamland, from a dream, and what felt like a mini visitation in a dream, which then parlayed into this, me thinking about what was shared and then into this topic. And yeah, isn't it cool to think how something that, not only happened, in my mind or wherever its consciousness is taking place. It's being processed by my mind right now, I guess you could say. That, this intangible thing can lead to a whole episode of a show that then is heard by, thousands and thousands of people. And it's just much less it being in the dream state, in an altered state, and being, memorable enough to be brought out of that dream state and take such form in the physical. Pretty cool. Before I go into my dream, I want to take a quick moment to read. So a while back, many years past, I used to always read reviews. And on iTunes at the time, now Apple Podcasts, because, of course, it helps us to find new people. And it always feels good to get feedback, as you can imagine, with this labor of love. And I kind of stopped doing it years back. And now they've really changed some things over at Apple. And I kind of, in retrospect, all is perfect and divine, but I wish I'd kept with it because, it helps us to reach a broader audience and all that jazz. So you'll notice at the intro, I started just asking you guys to take a moment to give a review, particularly on Apple Podcasts, so that we can reach a broader audience. And so I'm gonna read some of these again from time to time. This one's pretty lengthy, so I'm just gonna read the first little bit of it. And I'm super grateful for you, Music Teacher 26, for taking the time to go and give a review. And Music Teacher 26 said, "So grateful. Where to start? I am usually a woman of few words. I know, unusual, winky face. However, I have a feeling this will be a long review because there are so many great things to talk about. Brandon, thank you so much for 1, sharing your incredibly positive vibes with us and bringing us all up. 2, for having amazing content through your vast knowledge, inquisitive mind, and fabulous soul share guest. And 3, for the quantity of material that you put out for all of us. Thank you for Erica helping out with both the quantity and quality as well." And then she kind of goes on. So it's a longer one. I'll kind of stop it there. But yeah, I'm going to be reading again from time to time just to share and set the tone of the show. So thank you, music teacher, for taking the time to review, and I hope some of you guys will too. So to jump right into today's episode topic, my dream, it was a dream where I was like kind of coming into my room and there was a lot of people hanging out in it. It kind of reminded me of the vibes when we have like an event at the Mystic Manor party. And yes, most of you have probably heard before, but yeah, we do like these transformational type festival for a day sort of thing at the Mystic Manor here in LA every few months. And it's just incredible, community, heartfelt community sort of gathering and connecting, and yoga and cacao and, workshops and DJs and, all that jazz, art and vendors. And so it felt like one of those events. A bunch of people were hanging out in my space, and I walked in and I was like, whoa, hey everyone, and then I started interacting with someone in the group, and there's a bunch of random parts to it. I won't bore you with the random details. So the one that was important was all of a sudden it seemed like, have you ever had a dream where it seems like someone or something is out of place? And in retrospect, I look back and it's like, if a spirit guide or something was to jump into a dream mid storyline, I feel like this is what it would feel like. And so all of a sudden someone's next to me in the middle of this sort of interaction and that I'm having with people in my room. And this person is holding a piece of paper or something in their hand, and they're like, it's kind of like giving me the idea that it's like an oracle sort of thing. Like, and then they look at me and they say, what is it? You know what it says? And I'm like, and they looked at me and they said, trust. And I'm like, I was like, I do trust, kind of like, I do trust, right? And they kind of looked at me like, you sure? Yeah, okay, and that was it. I mean, so this isn't, you guys hear a lot of real crazy stories from me, synchronicity stories, spiritual breadcrumb stories, and this one isn't particularly crazy. But I did come out of it feeling like, oh, wow, okay, something wanted me to have this message. And of course, there was some synchronicity with my son bringing up his need to trust more in a conversation the next day and him feeling that strongly. And then I saw this great post by Osho that I'll read real quick about trust, and I ended up sharing it on social media. It said, if you want to learn anything, learn trust. Nothing else is needed. If you're miserable, nothing else will help. Learn trust. If you don't feel any meaning in life and you feel meaningless, nothing will help. Learn trust. Trust gives meaning because trust makes you capable of allowing the whole to descend upon you. And it's just like, like in The Golden Key, my book, I talk about trusting the mystery. That's one of the keys. And it's like, it is, as being said here in this quote, the greatest superpower to be able to, realize, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And anyone who thinks they've got it all figured out is kind of letting you know that they don't. Because, it's so vast what we are and what we're a part of. And there's so much mystery. And there's so many things going into what transpires. Out of the 7 billion people or whatever it is, 8 billion people on the planet now, those you're bumping up against are in your field for some reason. And the threads and the parallels and the past life stuff perhaps, and, the energetic reasoning is so deep and profound, you could never calculate it all out, right? So it leads you to what I've actually seen as some of my gene keys in my life path is ultimately to surrender to what is, and trusting the mystery of our lives. And when we can do that, you find power, because now everything has purpose and meaning, and you don't necessarily, you may have an idea about it. Well, a lot of times you do. I have a lot of ideas about it, but I can then chalk that idea up that I've got it figured out and say, yeah, you know what? And even if that's my idea about it is wrong, I trust that there's a deeper, more profound meaning underneath it, whether, I don't need to know kind of thing. And it takes a lot of weight off. We're carrying around so much energy of trying to control our lives. And we talk a lot about, manifesting what we want and all those things. And there's nothing wrong with having an aim or goal. And then letting, sort of set that intention and, as Abraham talks about, okay, that or something better for me, better suited for me. That's, well, what is better suited? Does that mean it's going to be a bigger car than what you wanted to manifest? No. Next, no, not necessarily. It might mean, you have to walk because there's going to be no car. But that still is something better for you, for your journey, for your soul's growth. You can trust that, right? You don't need to know the hows, whens, wheres, and whys of that, but you can choose to trust it. And I believe if you choose to trust everything, Richard Red talks about trust everything, learning to trust every little thing. And when you can get into that state, you really have achieved a sense of freedom. And this, we've all seen the person who's trying to control every aspect of their life. It's like, talk about a fool's errand that will drive you absolutely mad and insane because you are never going to win that battle, right? Because there's so many variables in life. There's so many things that can come out of left field. And, it's just, it's futile. It really is futile. And I found it's a few minute clip, about 8-9 minutes or so, of Alan Watts talking about this very thing. And it's titled "Just Trust the Universe." I found it on the True Meaning page, and let's take a quick listen.
Lao Tzu puts it in this way: the great Tao flows everywhere, both to the left and to the right. It loves and nourishes all things, but does not lord it over them. And when merits are accomplished, it lays no claim to them. The more, therefore, you relinquish power, trust others, the more powerful you become. But in such a way that instead of having to lie awake nights controlling everything, you do it beautifully by trusting the job to everyone else. And they carry it on for you. So you can go to sleep at night and trust your nervous system to wake you up in the morning. You can even tell it, I want to wake up at 6 o'clock, and it'll wake you up just like an alarm clock. This seems a sort of paradox to say this, but the principle of unity, of coming to a sense of oneness with the whole of the rest of the universe, is not to try to obtain power over the rest of the universe. That will only disturb it and antagonize it and make it seem less one with you than ever. The way to become one with the universe is to trust it as another, as you would another, and say, let's see what you're going to do. But in doing that, you see, in saying that to everything else that you have been taught to think is not you, you are also saying it to yourself. Because finally, as I pointed out, you do not know where your decisions come from. So when we decide, we're always worrying, did I think this over long enough? Did I take enough data into consideration? And if you think it through, you find you never could take enough data into consideration. The data for a decision in any given situation is infinite. So what you do is, you go through the motions of thinking out what you will do about this. And then when the time comes to act, you make a snap judgment. I mean, I'm speaking a little extremely, making some fun of it and so on, because after all, we do occasionally get the vague outlines of things and make a right decision on rational grounds. But we fortunately forget the variables that could have interfered with this coming out right. It's amazing how often it works. But warriors are people who think of all the variables beyond their control and what might happen. So then when you make a decision, and it works out all right, I think very little of it has much to do with your conscious intent and control. But somehow or other, you are able to decide and control things more harmoniously if you delegate authority. That's why very great businessmen are those who can delegate authority. Trust others to work for them. Because those are people developing businesses on the same basic structure that is fundamental to a living organism. Delegation of authority. It loves and nourishes all things, but does not lord it over them. And you see, then, what is happening is this. The more you let go of it and trust it, as if it were quite other than you, the more you realize the inseparable identity of self and other. To go back, if you try to find the identity of self and other by subjecting other to self, no go. If, on the other hand, you find it through giving self, that is control, over to other and trusting that, you may make a mistake. You may make a bad gamble. But in the long run, you're acting on a principle which has the backing of evolution. This is the way biological evolution goes on. Constant delegation of authority. That's why, obviously, the democracy is superior to the monarchy. It was de Tocqueville who said that democracy is always right, but for the wrong reasons. Because there is operating in a democracy the principle that Buckminster Fuller calls synergy. And synergy is the intelligence of a highly complex system, the nature of which is always unknown to the individual members. Because that goes back again to this point, that we're always entering a new environment. We don't ever know fully what the new environment is, because the only environments we know are the past ones. There is always then operating in the development of cellular life on any level a new way of organization, higher than any existing form. And we are not aware of it until after it's happened. So we do come out of this way of thinking to something which has, I would say, the most enormously creative and revolutionary social consequences. That it has become not virtuous, not self-sacrificing, and not anything like that. It has become the hardest practical politics to let go control to others, to give up trying to dominate the scene. Also, in a parallel way, it has become at this time in our history very much hard practical politics. to learn how to enjoy ourselves. You can go to the Protestant people with their Protestant ethic who are against this kind of thing, and now say to them with great glee, it is your solemn duty to learn how to enjoy yourself. Why? Because in an age of leisure, people have really got to know how to enjoy themselves. Because if they don't, they'll smash the whole future of the human race.
Before we continue on with today's episode, I'd like to take a quick moment to tell you about a podcast that is focused on answering the big questions in life called Stories of Impact. Did you know that there are researchers out there working daily to discover scientific evidence about how you can flourish? Join Tavia Gilbert as she shares and connects with compelling stories all about the ongoing scientific exploration of how to live better, and shares key discoveries of research grantees from the Templeton World Charity Foundation. I listened to an episode with Deepak Chopra where he discusses how human flourishing is intimately tied into our ability to tap into the flow state, which really resonates with me. As you know, if you have read my book, I wholeheartedly believe in the importance of focusing our flow. So to continue improving your physical and mental health, tune into new episodes the first and third Tuesday of the month by subscribing and listening wherever you get your podcast. And be sure to check out storiesofimpact.org. The more you relinquish power, the more powerful you become. Isn't that interesting? It's like so many things in life, this dichotomy, this, the opposite of what we think. So many things, we truly are in the upside down. Sometimes it's always the opposite of what we think. It is in giving that you receive. It is in the relinquishing of power that the more powerful you become. Trying to obtain power over anything disturbs it. You become one with it by trusting it. By trusting others, you trust yourself. And I love how he said here, you don't really even know where all your decisions come from. Like even that, so if you're going to really be a judge, like you don't really know where they're coming from. You never could take in enough data. And what you do is take in as much data as you can. And then you make a snap judgment in the moment for the most part. Right. He said, we fortunately forget the variables that could have gotten in the way. And yet somehow it still is working out. Right. In our best and I think from at the end of the story of this particular life, this particular incarnation, I 100% believe that we'll look back and all the variables led to me getting exactly what I needed. And so if I can just bring that awareness now, then I'm going to win. It's going to make the journey so much smoother, so much more graceful too. I really resonated with him talking about business. As a serial entrepreneur my whole life, I've really struggled with delegating control a lot of times and trusting others to do what my feel needs to be done. And I've seen the reflections of that. And that's been a slow, great businessmen delegate authority. That's in there because they're emulating nature. That's how nature works. Probably my favorite thing in this whole video, this whole, audio clip was him saying, giving control, you may make a bad gamble, but you're acting on a principle that has the backing of evolution. At the end of the day, you have aligned with something that is making everything work. So you may lose a battle, but the war you've aligned with what will win the war, so to speak. So that really, really just resonated with me so strongly. Giving control, you may make a bad gamble or 2 or 5, but you're ultimately aligning with the principle of the universe, the way it operates and creates all this magic and beauty that's beyond our comprehension, right? It's come from this very principle that you are emulating, right? And we can all see all the greatest technology, all the greatest everything comes from emulating nature, an intelligence that's superior to our own. So give up trying to dominate the scene. Move into this sense of synergy, this, the intelligence of a highly complex system that you're never going to fully understand, but you can see, you can see the results of doing this. It's the cat is out of the bag, so to speak. Like, we can see that this path is a very, very powerful one. And it's, to add to that, the most powerful source of data when we are making decisions, I think, is intuition, for that very reason, right? Because it's taking in data points, way beyond what you can process with your mind, right? And so I think that's why, if we want to make the best decisions possible and align with the greatest outcome for ourselves, using our intuition and developing that muscle and trusting our intuition, right? Are you trusting your intuition? Because that's really your most powerful source of data. That's tapping into the superconscious. And that is, that's where it's at. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Alan's got my back, and I think you do too. I'm proud of you for doing what you're doing. And I do have a song to leave you with today. It is by Temple Step Project. It is called Move It. Until next time, journey well.